The past 48 hours have shaken Russia and really confused much of the world. The news still breaking overnight after that military mutiny by Russia's Wagner Group mercenaries. Those forces were 120 miles south of Moscow yesterday, apparently ready to strike the Russian capital, when suddenly their leader called it off.
Yevgeny Prigozhin announcing he was turning his troops around and heading back to the base camps they used for the war in Ukraine.
And later, the Kremlin said Prigozhin and his forces would face no criminal charges, and Prigozhin would head to neighboring Belarus. So let's get the latest developments now from ABC's Ian Panel, live in Kharkiv. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Gio. And you're right, what an astonishing series of events. As you say, almost unimaginable just 2 days ago, because up until that point, Vladimir Putin looked untouchable. He was a strong man in command and control of his country for more than 2 decades. But this morning, all of that is thrown into doubt, and he looks weak and vulnerable.
This morning, shock and confusion after a rebellion that's brought Putin's grip over Russia to its weakest point in decades. After threatening to march on Moscow with his thousands of loyal fighters and taking control of Russia's southern district military headquarters and key government buildings in the south of the country, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of a group of armed Russian mercenaries called the Wagner Group, announcing abruptly that he'd halt the advance after striking a deal with the Kremlin. The mercenary force, being hugged by residents in the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, met little resistance when they arrived, and less than a day later were feted like conquering heroes as they left.
Prigozhin definitely demonstrated to Putin that he felt that he was his equal. That may embolden other elites around Putin to start thinking about maybe taking control from Putin.
Now, more questions than answers around what happened. According to US sources, the president of neighboring Belarus brokering a deal, Prigozhin leaving Russia for Belarus with an amnesty. Historically, Prigozhin has been a long-time Putin ally, taking his armed mercenaries around the globe, fighting and securing business interests for Russia, most recently on the front lines in Ukraine. But Prigozhin's relationship with Russia's senior military leadership deteriorated to the point where he suddenly declared an armed revolt. 7:30 a.m. Prigozhin said they were at the headquarters of the southern military district in Rostov-on-Don and controlled military facilities and a military airfield. They were moving to Rostov through the night. Around noon, information on fighting around Voronezh appeared. Around 3:30 p.m., a column of Wagner fighters were noticed near Lipetsk. 8:29 p.m., Prigozhin suddenly announces that he's turning back. Prigozhin has been in a long-running feud with Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu, blaming him for Russia's catastrophic performance in the Ukraine war. The Kremlin apparently forgiving everything that took place in the past 48 hours, saying no one will be prosecuted. But despite the quick reversal, Putin looks weakened and questions about what this means for the war in Ukraine. President Zelensky commenting on the turmoil in Russia, saying Putin is obviously very scared and created this threat himself. His spokesman, Mikhailo Podolyak, sitting down to discuss the dramatic events in Russia.
Given what we've seen happening in Russia, do you believe we're now at the beginning of the end of the war in Ukraine?
Podolyak saying it's the beginning of the end of the war, but warning it could still last for some time.
Well, it's still not clear, actually, if Yevgeny Prigozhin has actually gone to Belarus yet or not. And we don't know what kind of deal was made. But I think it's fair to predict that we haven't seen or heard the last of Yevgeny Prigozhin. Gio?
And Ian, before you go here, what does this mean for the war in Ukraine now that Prigozhin is in Belarus?
It's a very good question. I think, firstly, had this rebellion gone further, it would have benefited Ukraine more, because instability inside Russia and amongst Russia's military would have given the Ukrainians an opportunity, especially if Putin had had to draw some of the troops from here into Russia to try and stop the advance of Wagner. But I think the possibility of Prigozhin being in Belarus is another threat to Ukraine. It's to the north of the country. It potentially gives access down towards Kyiv. I don't think we've heard the last of Prigozhin. If he rallies his troops and he pushes in from the north, then it's going to present more of a problem, I think, for the Ukrainians. Gio?
All right, Ian Panel, so appreciate your reporting. Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.